Thank you, Kelsey. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was just telling Kelsey this is going on hour number, well, at least hour 5 and then hour 6 of actual Google training, with about 2 more hours in the middle there of developing Google training in the middle for tomorrow's 2 hours of Google training that I have to do. So just all Google all the time. As Kelsey said, my name is Ben. I'm Ben Sondgeroth, and I am super happy to be here with you guys, actually coming all the way from Illinois to be with you. And I'm a Google nerd. Like I love this stuff. It is one of my, obviously I love to talk about it because it's my job. So I'm a Google certified trainer and have been for the last 8 years, and just really enjoy talking Google. So always thankful to work with Cook County Higher Education Group and providing these Google workshops and all sorts of fun stuff with Google. So today's topic is Google Docs. So the first topic today is going to be Google Docs, and we're going to spend the next hour and or just a little bit less talking about Google Docs, kind of visiting how we can leverage it, how we can maximize it, how do we use it, and what are the things that we can do with it. So again, as Kelsey said, if you like to, I'll stop and pause periodically and ask for questions. If people have them, feel free to drop them in the chat, and she will help facilitate those questions. So, but I like getting questions. They're fun. So feed me the questions when you guys have them. So I will have a link to drop in. So that should get you to, if you want the kind of checklist, kind of outline of the session today, feel free to open that link up and kind of follow along. We'll also be using that document to kind of, guide our learning, and then also maybe do some examples in there. Although I'm probably going to use a new document. I don't want to mess this one up because I like the formatting of it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody so that way you all can see it. I'm operating on 2 different screens tonight. So if you see me kind of like wandering with my eyeballs and they're looking one way or another, that's because you guys are over here and my screen with my document is over here. So, so that's what I'll be doing. All right, so let me make sure I'm all squared away here. I can see the chat if needed. And my wife's calling me even though I told her. She knows I have a workshop right now. Like, I don't understand why that happens. We have discussed this hour long that I'm going to be doing all day today. Anyways, and for several hours. All right, so here's our Google Docs. So there's some of the things that we're going to cover today. So we're going to really maximize how we're going to be leveraging Google Docs, and what are some of those things that you all need in order to become a solid Google Docs user and a good Google Docs user. I've been using Google Docs now since 2013. Like, that was when I really made the transition, and I can count probably on one hand the number of times I've used Microsoft Word since then. It's just become my go-to. Obviously, like all of my businesses that I've worked for, the schools that I've worked for, an organization I've worked for, we've all been Google centric since then. And since it's free in education and free for us to use in our Gmail accounts, then it just makes sense to use for everything. So, and the biggest thing that we like about it, and the thing that we're going to showcase a lot, is the collaboration that we can have in this. Okay, so it's not just something that is a kind of a one-sided thing where you're simply using the Word document in and of itself, and you're unable to collaborate easily with people. Like, I remember in college, like getting done typing an essay, saving it to the flash drive, sprinting to the computer lab 5 minutes before class to print it off to make sure, and then the computer lab was down or the printer was broken. It's like no way to get it to the professor, and like that stress is kind of palpitating my heart right now just thinking about that moment in time. And that just doesn't happen anymore with Google, because you can just share it with your professor or your teacher or your colleague or anybody that needs to see it. So, or like this, in this workshop, you guys are all seeing my Google document and I'm using it to teach from. Like, that's what I'm using to teach and facilitate from. So, okay, so this is kind of what we're gonna look at, but to get started, we just need to open up a Google Doc, and then we're gonna go through the features, like what's there, how do you do it, how do you use it? For those of you that are kind of at home, they're following along, if you would maybe just drop in the chat, like 1 to 5, fist to 5 we like to do, but since everybody's virtual, we'll do 0 to 5. What's kind of your level of experience in using Google Docs? And you can just put it in the chat either, and there's no shame in being a 0. That's why you're probably here if you are, or so you can drop that in the chat. This is like my window is moving all around it. There we go. All right, 3 and 4. Cool. Let's do it. So So yeah, we're going to get in and we're going to dive in. So we're going to create a new Google Doc, and we're going to do that just in case there are people that are going to watch this and haven't used it before. So we're going to find Google Docs actually in a couple of different places. So you're going to find it in your Google Drive, but you can also go to docs.google.com if you wanted to get to it a little bit, quicker. So docs.google.com is actually going to take you to somewhat of a different place than what normal Google Drive looks like. So docs.google.com is Google Docs' homepage. I'll be honest, I don't use this view very often, but I know some people that do, and they like it. This one, it kind of like, it just shows you your Google Docs. So if you're looking to create a Google Doc or find just your Google Docs, then you're actually going to use docs.google.com. And you can go in and you can see like everything is it's just my Google Docs. I always like to go through Drive because I just keep everything organized in Drive, and that's just where everything lives and it makes sense to me. And docs.google.com is fine, but it's not as clean to me as what I'm used to in Google Drive. So we go to Google Drive, we go to New, and then down to Google Docs. Okay, so that's where we're going to create our new one. But before we get into like a new Google Doc, there is like a place that I like to show people that nobody really likes to go into, and I'm not exactly sure why, unless they just never have clicked on it, which is perfectly fair. But if you actually hover over the arrow, when you go to New and then Google Docs, there's arrows, and there's actually arrows for all of the Google tools here. You can go to From a Template. And when you click on From a Template, if you're a part of an organization, so this is my training domain. So like this is an education domain that I use just for training. So it comes up with no templates available, exploring ed tech. But if you click on general, and this is there for all, even personal Gmail accounts, there should be a general template gallery. And this template gallery will have full on Google Docs templates that you can access that are already pre-formatted, that have lorem ipsum text in it that you can delete and remove and redo and put in your own information. But it's really cool. So you can see like there's book reports, lesson plans, pre-templated out letters, resumes. I actually, when I was applying for the job that I have now, went in here, found one of the resumes, and I was like, wow, that looks really good. I used it. And I got the job, so it must have worked. But like my wife, same thing. She was needing to change jobs, or no, she was applying to nursing school. I went in here, found the resume, found the cover letter template, and then you just open it up and it creates a new Google Doc that you can then go in and edit all of your information in yourself. So that template gallery is a really nice like little hidden feature that if you want to save some time and you're not really comfortable formatting and spending a lot of time formatting your Google Docs, like the template gallery is a nice place to go that already has a lot of pre-formatted Google Docs tools for you to, or Google Docs templates for you to go in. You can see it's just that lorem ipsum text that you can delete and remove and put your own in. So that's kind of a cool spot to kind of kick us off, to just show that exists. That's also when you do go to docs.google.com, you can see the templates show up at the top here. Okay, so that's where it's a little bit different of a look as well from there. The other way you would find the docs is if you go here to your waffle or your ice cube tray and select Docs. That's going to also take you to that. So if you're used to like, oh yeah, every time I create a Google Doc, like I just go to my waffle, click on Docs and go there. So you might have seen that before. That's the other way that you would get to it. So multiple ways to get to anything in Google. All right. So what we're going to do though is we're going to actually open up just a blank Google Doc, and we're going to give a quick kind of little tour around where some of the features are, because I see we have a couple of people that self-rated as 2s, and so we want to make sure we accomplish everything. We get everybody on here, we cover our whole thing. So we've created our Google Doc, and I always, no matter if you're a fist or a 5, like you're a 0 or a 5, the biggest helpful reminder, because I even catch myself doing it from time to time, is name your document. Like that catches me off. Like I guarantee if we go into my drive and we do a quick search for untitled, yeah, there's a lot of them in there. Now, most of that is because it's like demo like this, and I'm just like, oh, look at this new document, and then I just completely abandon it. However, I have created some stuff in the past and then just never put a title on it. And if you don't put a title on it, you'll be hard pressed to find it again by a title search on which one it is in your Google Drive. So we'll just do this one. Let's name it something like
And as long
that.
as you're saying that, can you just clarify when you are doing your search in Google Drive? My understanding is you can key search words within the document. So if you do remember something you wrote about, you can search that way.
You can still find it if it's not, if you labeled it untitled by accident, yeah, then you can type in like, oh, I know I was writing something about this topic. Then yes, you can find it with just typing in the keywords to that. So yeah, good to point out, Kelsey, that if you did by accident forget to title it, definitely just type in some of the words that you know you wrote about and it'll be there. The other thing too, and it might, I'll just open up a new one, another new one. If you put in something like, we'll call this a school proposal. And then you go, oh, wait, I need to title that. If you type in something in the document and then go up and just click up here in the rename area, it'll actually take whatever you typed and throw it into the title of the document. The problem is, if you type the whole paragraph, it actually takes like most of the paragraph and names the document that. So you want to do it pretty quick or else you're going to have a really long title. So just kind of another cool thing about Google, that if you type something in and you put it in there, it'll grab the first sentence. I think it's maybe the first sentence and put it up there. But if you don't even have a sentence, then you're good to go. So, all right. So let's go back into our document. So here's some of the things that we're looking at in here. Just a quick little tour of features, especially if you're more familiar with Google, with Microsoft Word, you know, and where those things live. Your toolbar is going to be up here at the top. And this is going to give you all of your editing and formatting tools that are most frequently used. There are going to be some new things that, you know, are some things you might want to dig a little bit deeper into the menu bar that'll be up here. But as far as your main tools go, those are going to live here. And one thing that I always like to point out to people is that if you are ever stuck or you don't know what something is, you don't know what a button is, just hover your mouse over top of that particular tool or that particular icon, whatever it is, and it's going to tell you what that is. So if you're like, I don't know what that does, just take your mouse, hover it, and go. And I don't know if I've told this, Kelsey might have heard this before. I can't remember if I said it on here with any of the other ones. But one of the things that's cool about this, and it's actually just a thing that comes up in other parts of Chrome too, and actually on my Mac completely. But if you look at the mouse, my son was down here. He's 4 years old. And he was down and he showed me that, or I was doing something. He goes, oh, look, the Mickey hand. And it like completely blew my mind that like anytime you go over something that you can select, can't select up here. So I have the arrow pointer. I can select this. That hand does look like Mickey Mouse's hand. So anytime you see the Mickey Mouse hand, that means you can select something on the menu bar and do something with it. And I was like, the mind of a 4-year-old, it's amazing, right? So the Mickey hand, and I actually showed that to a kindergarten teacher and she was like, that's amazing. I can't wait to have kids, like tell my kids that. So just something that's pretty cool that a 4-year-old came up with. So anyway, lots of stuff around the top here. These are our undo buttons. When we want to print, we can print with the printer, pretty standard. Spelling and grammar check is always going to be on. I'll show you later how you can turn that off should you ever want to. Paint formatting, that's one we're going to skip for right now. We can address that in a little bit. Zooming in, this is going to just help you with whatever you know, you need to see maybe a little bit closer on the text. It always defaults to 100 of this. We're going to skip headings for styles for now. These are our fonts. One of the complaints I get from a lot of teachers that are or you know, users in general is that there's not as many fonts as Microsoft Word. That's true. They did just release 60 more fonts like last week though. So there are now a ton of fonts in Google Docs. And if you don't see the font here, and always remember too, like if you see these little arrows, that's going to give you some more options as well for that particular font. But if you don't see it here, go to more fonts. And then there are going to be a lot more fonts in here for you to choose from. So while one of the big, you know, complaints before was, oh, there's not enough fonts, there are a ton of fonts now available. Will it be the same? Maybe not, but there's a lot of fonts in Google Docs now. And you can change those by going to this drop down here and looking for more fonts or looking here. But the default will always be Arial 11. And so it's actually like a testament to Google's brainwashing, I think, that I am now like accustomed to Arial 11 as just being like normal, because I used to be like, I was a history major. And so it was always Times New Roman, 12-point font, single and half space. And now with Google Docs, my brain is completely warped back warp to Arial is an acceptable font and 11 size is an acceptable font to type in, just because that's what the default is. So we can change our font here. And what's kind of neat about this, I'll type in a sentence here. So okay, so I've got a sentence typed in, composed my sentence, and now we get to this part here where we can start formatting our sentence. So just giving a couple of quick things. One of the new updates that I love, and this is going to be in slides as well, it's in docs, it's in most of the apps now, but I like the fact that the font size is able to be adjusted just by using a plus and minus sign now. And so you can actually choose and see like kind of how it looks when you don't have to keep guessing. Like, oh, I wonder what 16-point font looks like, and you have to type in 16. I wonder what, no, that's not enough. Like, what about 18? You have to type in 18. Like, you can just use the plus sign now and kind of, adjust it to be whatever makes sense for your document. And you can do that by highlighting it. You can also, when you have it just selected, your cursor flashing, you can also increase the size, what would come after that. Okay, so like you can do it ahead of time if it's there, and now when I type, it's going to be in size 17 because of that. So the plus minus on the font sizes, I really find to be a lot of fun. I think it's just like, it's really a cool new way that they've given us to speed things up and to make adjustments. I think it applies more in slides that we'll be doing in the next session. It's a little bit easier to use in slides because you can select the whole text box and make it bigger, but it's still pretty cool that they put it in Google Docs. And then you also have along the way, you have your bold, italic, and underline, which are pretty standard. So anytime you select those, you're going to be formatting your text to become bold, italic, or underline. You also have the text color option here. One of the things that if you have been using this before and you want to change colors and use, there is an option down at the bottom here for the plus sign that gives you a whole color slider. So if you don't see one of the colors that you want to use, you can use this color slider and you can pick a different color and you can move the slider around to get a different hue and all of that. And then when you hit OK and you like it, it'll show up as a text color, and it will also live in the custom area down here. So you'll always have continual access to that color. So if you don't love the fact that they only give you, a handful of colors here, you can change it. The other thing is that, and this might be a little bit more advanced, but there are tools out there. So one that I really like is called the eyedropper. So this is a Chrome extension, doesn't have a whole lot to do with Google Docs, but what we'll show is with the eyedropper, this is actually what's called a color picker tool. And so if I want to go to Cubs.com, since I'm a Cubs fan, and I want to write something in Cubs blue, like, so I've got my Cubby blue here, and I want it to be specifically Cubby blue. You can use the eyedropper tool. And this is, again, a little more advanced. So, but I just want to show you how you can use hex codes in this. Pick a color from a web page. And then what's kind of cool is, like, as my mouse is following along, and it's hard because it's blending in here, but you can see, like down here, you see that little box that's with it. I can select this blue, the color changed up here, go back to my Google Doc. And then what's neat is I'll highlight my family because we're all Cubs fans. We'll go to the text color, custom, and you see there's a spot for a hex code here. So that's a color code that you can put in. So every color has that individual hex code, and most companies have one that's like trademarked. So you can go to that color picker and you see up at the top, and I can't zoom in unfortunately, but right at the top there is the hex code. So I can copy that. Maybe. It's not gonna let me. Why isn't it letting me? Anyways, well, that's annoying. Oh, there, it highlighted everything. It must be just a little, what is going on? Well, anyway, in the interest of time, you can copy that. It's not working right now for some reason. Paste it into the hex code down there, or you could just type it all in, and then you would have Cubby blue. So you can customize the color. Basically what I'm getting at is if your organization has a specific color that they want their fonts in, you can use that with that custom area, which is kind of cool. So
Hey Ben, when I copy and paste things, sometimes I'm copying things that somebody else wrote or it's off of the internet. When I paste on here, is that going to take the font from somebody else?
Yes. So good question. So here is a good example of that. And yeah, that's a good prompt to kind of show another fun little shortcut to remove that stuff. So if I go to thecubs.com here and I click and I highlight, I'm just struggling here with highlighting. So let's go into the actual article. That'll be better. Cubs.com not wanting us to copy and paste any of their stuff. How about that? So I'll go ahead and copy this. So I'll copy it, go back into my Google Doc, and then there's a couple of ways that you can actually do this. So if I just paste this in, you can see that there is going to be a little bit of a difference. Like this font here, I'll zoom in just a little bit so you guys can see. So this font is Georgia and it's 14.5, and this font is Arial 13. So one of my tricks that I actually really like is if you highlight this and then you use the keyboard shortcut Control, and then I just typed it in, the /. Okay, so it's usually right above your return key on your keyboard. If you do that or command that on a MacBook, if you have it highlighted and you command or Control /, it formats it back to your default text. Okay, so it strips that like website formatting away and puts it to whatever your default text is. So in this case, it's Arial 11 because that's what everything is in Google Docs. So I would just have to quickly bump that up to 13 to make it match the rest of my text. So kind of cool. That's something you can also do in Gmail. And so if you do that shortcut, you paste something into an email in Gmail, you can do that same keyboard shortcut and it'll strip it away. The other option is, and this one might be a bit easier, if you, I don't do a lot of right clicking. I actually do mainly keyboard shortcuts for my copying and pasting. But if you right click and then you say paste without formatting, that'll also drop it in without having it take on the website's formatting. So that's maybe even a little bit quicker if you're not kind of keen on doing the keyboard shortcuts. So you can see that actually dropped in even better and cleaner in Arial 13. So yeah, so you can strip that formatting away if you copy and paste something into a Google Doc. All right, so let's get rid of that. We'll leave Patrick Wisdom's stats in there. So a couple of other formatting options. You also have the highlighting. So if you would like to highlight something, you go to highlight color. Again, you have your color scheme here, but you can go to a custom color if you'd like. So we can highlight it yellow for whatever you need to highlight along the way. And yeah, so that's pretty much a lot of the inserting text and formatting as far as text actually goes. So I know Kelsey just put in, does anybody have any other questions at the moment on any like text entry, formatting rules, things like that?
Maybe if you could show people how to do the tabbing over, just in case they are wanting to move their font around based on arrowing over one direction or moving it the other direction.
As far as like increasing the indent and stuff like that, or?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, okay, sure. So if I wanted to, so there's a couple of things that we can do with that. So we have over here, we have the increase indent option. So if I wanted to bump this over, I would use the increase or decrease indent, which is going to give me that kind of tab bump over on there. So you can use the ruler up at the top to slide that around. But one of the things that I like to do is I like to make it kind of uniform when I do that. And so sliding it, here, and then, hitting return, and then backing it up to the beginning, and then typing something else, and then trying to get it to line up at another paragraph down could be a little bit difficult. And so one of the things that I like to show people is using these two buttons over here, increase indent or decrease indent. And that's just going to make it uniform as it continues to bump it wherever you need it to be in the document. So that can be super helpful as far as formatting goes. Another piece of formatting, so if we get rid of this bump over, if you have multiple things, and in this case I'll highlight them, you can put in your bulleted lists. So that's going to be over here. where you have multiple different options for bulleted lists, everything from normal traditional bullets to arrows, stars, checkboxes, which is what I use here. Well, it's not actually checkboxes. That's a new feature that we're going to get to explore together because I just saw it this morning. So I have no clue what it looks like. We're going to learn together because it's brand new to all of us. But these actually look like checkboxes. They are just the bullet points that you can do. So you're going to get those extra bullet points by clicking on the down arrow next to the bulleted list there. Okay. So if I select one of those, you can see the bullet comes in. Now a middle bullet came in because I did have a return in the middle there. So I'm just going to delete that and get that out of there to backspace that out. But I can change those. If I highlight this, I can actually change that to something different if I wanted to. So we can change it to the arrows, or we can change it to the squares or the stars or the asterisks or whatever those are. And if I don't want them anymore, I'll remove the bulleted list. Perhaps I want to number them. So this is my outline view. Okay, so these more maybe traditional outline looking. If I'm making an outline for something, you can see I can click on the bullet numbered list here, and then I have several different options for a more traditional outline view. So I can click on that. We'll zoom back out. And then if I tab this over, you can see it goes into that kind of traditional outline usage there, which is really handy when you're building out some sort of outline or something along those lines. So a couple of the ways that we can format text to make it match what our objective is. Now, the one that I am curious, I am super excited for this, to be perfectly honest. I was in the workshop this morning and we had done Google Docs yesterday, so I didn't get to explore this with the group, but there is a new feature in Google Docs. And this is why I have a job, because Google continually updates things over and over and over again, and somebody has to learn it. So there's a new thing called a checklist, and I'm curious to see what this is. So if you guys would indulge me, we're going to find out together. I'm going to select it and see what happens. Well, that's pretty cool. Not as dramatic as perhaps we were hoping for, but it's literally a checklist, which is, I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited about that. So that's pretty cool. So it looks like we can just go task 1, task 2.
And does it work underneath a bullet point?
Let's find out together. Let's reformat it. Oh no, it looks like it's going to be kind of all, no, it does. So it looked like you had to put, oh, that's interesting. So if it's on the same level, okay, so let's go back. Okay, so we have our checklist. If I go here, back, I'm going to delete it and then put a bullet point in. Okay, so that works. But it looks like if I want it to, I have to delete, yeah, okay, let me go back up here. There we go. So I'll go right above it, do a bullet list, and then we'll type something. I wonder if this will work. Let's see. It like wants to change the whole list. So I think it did work for a second there, and I don't, since we're just all learning this together, I'm curious as to what the differentiation was. I think it was that I got rid of the bullet point and then added the check mark or the checkbox.
I think it was because you actually tabbed over one, so it became.
Yeah, I think so too. Because then if I change it, it goes all, so it looks like you have to kind of mess with your tabbing. But that's really cool. Like that's going to be really neat for collaboration on a document, or even like, think about this too, where like you're constructing some sort of proposal or a document, or even like I have a blog post here as an example that I wrote. I can put a checkbox at the top and just kind of use that to guide what I need to talk about as I'm going. So that could be super good for like just helping facilitate what you need to do in the document. So that's really cool. I'm excited to see that as a feature. And I'll be honest, I had not heard anything from them that they were releasing that feature. So that was really like legitimately brand new. And you guys got to see me geek out a little bit on new Google features, which I tend to do from time to time. So last couple of things as far as formatting goes. If I want to highlight something here, you can use your alignment here, which is going to give us our left align, center align, right align, and justify. So that's pretty traditional, similar to anything Microsoft Word. But then you also have your line spacing. Okay, so your line spacing, this is where it's going to give you your, whatever look you're going for with your document. This is also where we can click and add and remove our spaces after or before paragraphs. Okay, so this is something that on a lot of copying and pasting that happens from time to time, or bulleted lists even. As an example, if I take and make this a bulleted list again, we'll left align that one more time. We will bullet this. There's no space in between my bullets. And so I will want to go to, I don't want to go here because this doesn't give me that option. I'll actually go to the line spacing area and then say add space after list item. And now that's going to give me a space. So then when I put another bullet in, I automatically get that space. So that's something that's helpful when you're formatting your lists, or if you see that that's there and you don't want that, you would just have to highlight, go back to the line spacing and say remove space, and then that disappears. So that's something I honestly do. I don't know how many times it seems like I'm editing a Google Doc, like messing with the line spacing in between bulleted points. Okay. So that's about 30 minutes in. Do we have any formatting questions from anybody that is on with us right now?
Don't see anything yet, but a reminder, people toss them into the chat.
Can I just ask real quick?
100%.
I know that that's not the rule. If you double space like you just did, Ben, and you're doing a document and you want some bullet points double spaced and some bullet points single spaced, do you have to continue to go back to the spacing bar?
Yeah. There's no default way to tell it to like, it wouldn't know how to do like which ones you wanted in which spacing. Okay. So yeah, so what you would do is you would just have to bullet it. And like, I'll just copy this to make a couple of different examples. So if I wanted this one to be single spaced, but then this one, I would just have to highlight it, go up to spacing, add a space, or change my spacing here, so I could double space that bullet point and that other stuff would remain the same. Now so this is where we get to that paint formatting option. So if you wanted to speed that process up, one of the ways that you can do that is with this paintbrush here. Okay, so your paintbrush is actually, if I highlight this is the key. You have to have it highlighted, whatever you want the formatting to be. You have to have it highlighted, and then you use the paint format. And what that's going to do is that's going to copy this formatting. And then you see my mouse cursor is now like the selector, and if I highlight, whatever I highlight now is going to take on that same formatting when I release it. So you see how it now went to double space. Okay. The issue with that is that it only works once, and then you have to redo it again. So like if I wanted to paint format this up here, I have to click on the paintbrush again, and then go back up and then paint format it again. So the paintbrush does speed that up a lot because it can just say, so then you don't have to highlight, click, 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 like, but it is like a little bit tricky to like, I mean, even myself, like I kind of like trip my brain up with the formatting. The other thing is you notice the difference. It stripped away the text color for Wisconsin Dells and the highlighter, because that's not technically like part of the actual formatting of the text, like at its core. That's like stuff you changed. And so the core formatting is black 13-point font. So that's what it stripped it down to. So the paintbrush would speed that process up, so you don't have to keep like clicking and dragging and stuff like that. So good question. Okay, so moving on. One thing that I didn't get to, I got a little bit ahead of myself talking about the different ways that we can format the text. If we do want to make this collaborative and we want other people to edit this document with us, what we're going to do is we're going to use the share button up in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And so I went into a lot of detail about the sharing and stuff like that in Google Drive a couple of weeks ago. So that would be a good recording to go back to go into some more detail about sharing. But with sharing, if I click on the blue button, share, this is now going to allow me to type in the email, the Google account, or the email address. They don't have to have a Google account to give them rights to see this. But this is going to allow me to type in that person's account. So I can do writer. If I have the box selected to notify them, they'll get an email saying that I shared the document with them. I can also either make them an editor, a commenter, or a viewer. So you all are actually viewers on my outline here. Okay, you don't have editing rights to it, so you can only see it. So that's what this is. Commenter is if I gave writer commenting power, he can't make any physical changes to the text. But what he's going to be able to do is actually still drop in comments on part of the text. So basically you're saying, writer, I don't really want you to change things, but I want your input on this. And then I might or might not accept that input. Like, we'll see. So like you're just giving them the power to like make a comment on it. Okay. So, but I'm going to make him an editor. And then when I do that, I just hit send. I'm actually going to not share it because I don't have email set up. I'm going to go ahead and send it. And now you can see up at the top, it's going to say, it's going to have this two little person icon. And that's just your kind of icon for knowing that it's been shared with somebody else. And then if I went into writer's profile, you can see when he goes in, you can see it's writer because he's got the R up here. He has editing rights to this. He can see my cursor and where I'm at. And then if I go back to me, I can see his cursor and where he's at. And then this is kind of a fun trick. So when you're collaborating with somebody on a big document and you don't know where they're at or what they're doing, okay? You're like, I wonder what Ben's doing. So we're gonna just go down, we're gonna add a couple of page breaks here. So this is how we add more pages to a Google Doc without actually getting to the bottom of the Google Doc. You go to insert, page break, and then I go to page 2 of 2, and then we'll go another one, insert, break, page break. And so now I'm on page 3. And so writer just typed that. And if I'm up in this document, I'm like, I see writer just made an edit. I don't see anything here. I see he's in the document. If you click on his name, on his little avatar up there, that'll actually drop you down to wherever that person's cursor is in the Google Doc. So you can select it and it'll be like, oh, he's working on that part of the document. That's where he's at, you know? So it's kind of interesting. Like you can see where they're kind of what they're working on. They don't know that you clicked on it. Like it just like drops you right down to where they're at. There also is if you are not in a school domain. So it can work in a school domain, but lots of schools have it turned off. But if you're working in like a regular Google Doc with a personal Gmail account or a work or a Google account, you can also see this option here that's right next to whoever else is in the document with you. And that'll actually open up a chat that you can chat back and forth with that person inside of that Google Doc. So I can, you know, send writer a message. And then you can see one unread message. He opens it up. So you can have that conversation without having to like jump in a Zoom call or call him on the phone, or if you just need a quick update. Now that chat does not like stay there forever. Like it doesn't like, you know, allow you to like have it archived or things like that. So just be aware that, you know, it's not something that's going to be like an ongoing like notes file that you're going to be using. But it can be helpful if you're editing something with somebody in real time to just clarify things if you're not on a Zoom call or a Hangout or something with them. Kind of a cool, neat feature. But we did turn that off for the kids. If chat is disabled, like the actual like Google app chat is disabled, then that will not show up for the students. So the students would not be able to access that. Okay, so that's a lot of collaboration a little bit of collaboration with Google Docs. Let's double check our outline, see where we're at. Okay, so next thing we want to do is we want to look at some ways that we can provide like collaborate and feedback and things like that. So one of the features that we just talked about was, can we comment, like giving people commenting access to our Google Docs. So a benefit to Google Docs is that collaboration piece where we're making sure that people are able to comment their back and forth and give their feedback without actually changing the text. So I can highlight anything in the Google Doc, and then when I highlight that, I have two buttons that pop up on the side where I have add comments or I have suggest edits. Okay, and the comment is going to then change the color of the background. It's going to highlight that text that I had highlighted and give me a comment window over here. And now that comment will be there for anybody that has access to edit the document or has commenting views on the document to see. And then they can also respond to that. So Ryder can go up, he'll click on my picture and jump straight up there. He sees the comment, he can click on it, he can reply. And we can have a conversation back and forth about that particular topic that we were commenting on. It is really helpful for giving feedback without having to actually change the text and not knowing what somebody did when they changed the text. So you can give that feedback. We use it a lot in my work where we're commenting back and forth on things that we think need to be adjusted. And if somebody says, okay, that comment's good, we can resolve the comment with the check mark and it disappears. But it doesn't disappear forever. If you want to see what that comment was, it does stay archived up in the top where it says open comment history. And then you'll see the comment here. And that's going to stay there for as long as that document is allowed. Like that's not going to disappear. So that's helpful if you want to go back and kind of track where that comment came from. The last thing with commenting, if you want to get somebody's attention on a comment. Okay, so this actually happened to me just yesterday. Well, I guess not really. It was a couple days ago, to be accurate. But if somebody makes a comment in a document, so I'm going to comment, I'm Ryder here, and I'm going to comment, actually, let's do this. So let's go comment. And now one of the things that happens, so when you comment on a file, the owner of the Google Doc will get an email about it, or should. So if Kelsey's the owner of the document and I make a comment on it, Kelsey will get an email that says, Ben Sondgeroth made a comment on this document. And she'll be able to see that. And she'll be able to respond to it actually directly from the email. It's pretty cool. But if, say, Rita, if you make a comment, the three of us are sharing it, but you make a comment, but you want me to adjust something, I never get that email because I'm not the owner of the document. So Ryder here, like me as Ben, I'm the owner, and I want to make sure Ryder knows to go to this part because maybe he thinks he's done with this part of the document. You can actually start with an @ symbol and then start typing that user's name out or their email account, and you can see it autofills. Like as soon as you hit the @ sign, everybody that you've been recently commenting with like populates. And you can start typing their email out, and it should populate up. And then you can say like, please review. And you can even assign it to them. And when you do that, that will actually send that person an email saying, hey, it's basically like an emphasis. Like, I really need you to look at this. So it sends them an email notification that you mentioned them in a comment and that you need them to come look at that. And then when they open it up, you can see here, Ryder, it looks different, right? It's got that big blue box at the top. And so it says assign to you. So like when you open it up, you're going to see, hopefully, like that big blue label on there. It says, hey, then Sondgeroth needs you to do this. And then you say, okay, yep, did it, check it, and it's resolved. So again, just some good collaboration tips and tricks there. All right. Okay, any questions so far? Got about 15 minutes left. We're in good shape. All right, so next,
themselves to ask a question, you're welcome to do that too.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so here's what we're going to do now. One of the things that makes a Google Doc really awesome, lots of things, but it's the fact that it's actually like, and this is kind of like a crazy thing to wrap your brain around, but it's a living website. Like you're literally editing a website, even though it's just a Google Doc. You're editing a website that can be shared via link with anybody and everybody, which also means that when you create it, you can make words, text, live links to other websites. So you make them clickable. The term we actually use for this in education is a hyperdoc, because it's a hyperlink put into a Google Doc, hyperdoc. And so, but this has tons of different applications that aren't just for education. Like when you create something, you want to have links to other things so people can explore them and go out and look for them. Well, one of the things that I have a few pet peeves in composing things with technology, and one of them is that if I wanted somebody to say like, we'll delete that, say reference cubs.com, or like actually here's what I'll do. So we want the whole website in there. So I'll just grab this, paste it in. That drives me crazy. Like I am not a fan of like the gigantic long links in Google Doc, because there's a way to make it much cleaner and much prettier. And you can see that this is live. Like I can click on that, gives me the link below, takes me right to the website. Perfect. But what I want to do is make either maybe the word reference or just maybe a couple of words up here that people can click on to then view that article. Or I can type in to read the whole article, click here. And so what I want to do is make this my link, okay? So to do that, I'm going to highlight it, and then up in my menu bar, I have the option to insert a link. So I'll select that, and then I get this pop-up window here. And I want to paste my link in there, hit apply. And now, instead of the long, ugly link, I have nice, clean words that look a lot better and cleaner in my Google Doc. Now, Google heard my pet peeve, and they understand it, and they actually made an update that makes me very happy, okay? So if I paste this whole link in, and I paste this long, ugly link in, if you click on it, you see you have your preview here. And then down at the bottom, there's actually this option that says replace URL with its title. And you're like, oh, sure. Click yes. And then it just, whatever the title of the website is, it just turns that into text. And that's now your hyperlink to that website, which is pretty cool. Makes it a lot easier. So I guess it just depends on what you're looking for when you paste that link in. Do you want it to be like embedded kind of in the text? Or do you want it to be more like whatever they have as the title of the website for it? It's kind of up to you. And then the last thing with that is if you have something that's very kind of specific, like the Wisconsin Dells, and you know, you're not going to like a specific article here, you can actually highlight that, click the insert link button, and then notice down at the bottom, it actually gives you like Google search results for whatever you highlighted. And so like you don't even have to know the website. You can just be like, oh yeah, I want wisdells.com. That's exactly what I want. Click on it. Now that's your website. And if I click on this, it'll take me to the official website for the Wisconsin Dells. So kind of a cool way that you can make your website or your Google Doc interactive, clickable, and all of that. I use that all the time. I put so many links into my Google Docs, like letting people click on things and explore and go to different resources. I find it to be super helpful. All right. So moving on, last thing as far as inserting stuff here that we're going to talk about tonight, images. So you can bring images into your Google Docs. You can do it a couple of ways. You can click on the image icon in the menu bar here. You can also go to Insert, Image, and you can have the same options here. They're no different, okay? But you can see we can bring in pictures from our computer, our Google Drive, our Google Photos, from our URL, which doesn't always work all that great, so I never really suggest that one, or your camera. So if you want to take a selfie, you can drop a selfie into your Google Doc too. So that's always an option if you wanted to, you know, take some selfies and drop them into your Google Doc. You can do that. But yeah, the search the web though is the one that a lot of people really like. Okay, so when you search the web, you get a web search over here, and these searches are all going to be for Creative Commons images. So that way you know that they're being used and they're appropriately, and they're not going to be under copyright. So like if I did one for the Wisconsin Dells, actually we'll do one for the Cubs. There's not a whole lot that comes up. I mean, there's stuff, but like none of them are like super professional because they're all Creative Commons. Like it's not coming from Cubs.com. It's coming from somebody that drew this logo or made this logo, or took these pictures and uploaded them to like Wikimedia Commons or a place like that. But I can take them and then insert them into my Google Doc and resize them. And move them around if I wanted to. So you can bring your images in to your Google Doc. All right. Lastly, as we are running out of time, I want to make sure that we hit on the tools menu, because there are some awesome tools in here. So we've talked about adding text and formatting and all of that good stuff. But one of the things that I want to highlight is the tools menu here, because you have the ability in the tools menu to do a lot of really cool things. So if you've been using Google Docs, you've noticed undoubtedly that there is now a grammar check in Google Docs where it's telling you like, hey, you should put a comma here, or that word doesn't really work, or you used the wrong there again. Like, so you can actually have that on, or if you don't like it, you find it annoying, you can turn it off. So that's what you would turn off, show grammar suggestions here, okay? There's also word count in here. This is not too crazy revolutionary because everything's got a word count, but what is cool is that when you select word count, you can go down and click on display word count while typing. And then now you see down the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, it updates as I type. Something that would have been super helpful when I was in college and struggling to get to like 900 words on an essay that I didn't really want to write. I could have been like painstakingly like getting there and like seeing the end of the, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's kind of a neat feature with that. There's also a new awesome, again, something that's been super helpful in college, citations editor or toolbar in here. And so with the citations, so again, tools, citations, you have between MLA, APA, and Chicago author date to choose from. And since I'm in education, I have to do all my stuff in APA if I take a master's class. So what I can do now is go add citation source, say that it's a website. Now it does not auto-fill the stuff in. It's not like an EasyBib or a citation machine or anything like that. But you can say like where you accessed it, who the author was. So like if I wanted to access this one, I would say this is from Thomas Harrington. So we'll just do Tom H because I don't want to get into too much there. I'm going to then copy the title, paste that in. The website title is there's the Cubs.com. The URL is Cubs.com. Or actually, it's not Cubs.com. It is this one. I don't know why I'm being so specific. It's the good scholar in me. Published date was yesterday, the 7th of June, 2021. And I'm not going to put the access date in or anything like that. And then you hit add citation source. And now you have the citation. And this is the part that's awesome. And this was the part that I wish I had this in my master's program and my undergrad and everything like that, because I can click in the text and I can say cite the source and it inserts the citation directly in. And then when I'm finished with my paper, I just simply return a couple of times under the last paragraph and say insert bibliography, and bada bing, bada boom, the bibliography is now in my paper and I don't have to do that. Unbelievable. Like, I just think of the hours I spent on this in college, and it just does it for you. And if you close it out and then you go back to it, it just keeps it. So it just keeps your bibliography running. So as you add more citations and more sources, it'll just keep doing that. So unreal. The things that technology does for us.
And on another note, sometimes when you share things, you might want to know if somebody viewed it or edited. Can you share for a second?
Sure. So a couple of ways we can actually do that. All right. So before we leave, we'll do that. So if we go to tools, there's actually two ways we can do that. Tools will actually give us what's called the activity dashboard at the bottom down here. And this is pretty cool. So when you click on activity dashboard, this is going to show you who it's shared with, when they last viewed it. So we can see that Ryder viewed this within the last hour. And if you have it shared out with more people, it'll show you all the people here if they're signed into your domain. The other thing that it'll do is it'll show you the trend. So like if this is something that is like a document you're working over time, it'll show you like the trends on it, who's been commenting on it. It'll also give you the sharing history. So if you think that Ryder was sharing this document with somebody that he wasn't supposed to be, you can go into here and you can see, oh, Ryder shared this with Kelsey. Kelsey wasn't supposed to have access to that. And then Ryder removed Kelsey from the document. Like you can see all of that inside of the activity dashboard here, which is really a pretty cool way to kind of keep track of who's been accessing this, when they accessed it, you know, all of that stuff. So that is one way. The other way is actually in Google Drive as well. So go to my recent tab here. And in the recent tab, you can click, or you can find the Google Doc, click on it, and then go to the I in Google Drive. And that will also show you the activity on that Google document. So you can see who was editing it, from where and when. So again, gives you that high level overview. And then the last way, and probably the most important way, is if you go to File, Version History. Okay, so File, Version History. And version history will allow you to see the history of that document and who made changes and what they made changes to. So currently we're on the current version here. You can see I made it at 4:09 today. At 4:56, this is the current version. These are in the document. And if I expand that down, that'll show me all of the different changes that were made. And if I see Ryder made a change at 4:45, if I click on that, it'll show me, oh, it was making the change at the bottom down here. Yeah, there it is. I couldn't find it because it was all the way on page 3. So you can see this is when he didn't have anything. And then now that was when he like changed it. So you can kind of click and see when people were making all of their changes to the document. So version history is super important for seeing like when people made things, or if you want to revert back to a different version, or you deleted something and you want to get it back. You can go back and say, oh, I really want it to look like this. I want that back. You can actually go in, highlight it, copy it, and then go back and paste it in. Now, it has all that goofy formatting from the revision history, but if we remember our formatting removal, we can just take away all that formatting, bump it up to our 13-point font, and it's back to where it should be. So yeah, version history. So lots of different ways we can kind of see who's doing what in a Google document. And I think I'm about out of time. I think there's one more though, if I could just be real quick. I want to show, like, because I think it's helpful for teachers or for everybody. If you're in an organization that works with people that speak different languages and runs into people that have different languages, you can translate an entire document without having to go to Google Translate. So if you have like Spanish speakers or other like language speakers, you can go to Tools and then Translate Document. And then it will make a full copy of the document. And there are like 100 languages in here, tons of different languages that you can go. So if you have somebody that speaks, we're going to spin the wheel of languages here. Finnish, maybe up there in Minnesota, I don't know, maybe. You can click on Finnish, translate it, and it makes a whole new copy. And it translated it into Finnish. Now, I don't speak Finnish, so I can't speak to its accuracy, but I do like kind of understand Spanish, and the Spanish translation is very accurate. So that's a tool that I find to be super helpful with teachers, or just with everybody that's maybe working with an organization that's working with people that speak different languages. So there's a few more things, but not much. But yeah, any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say we're getting close to the end.
Yeah.
If you have a last minute question, this is the time to ask it. Otherwise, I'm going to let you know that we're going to transition into the next link for the next class. So this is a great time. Feel free to put your questions in, unmute yourself, or ask a question in the chat.
All right.
Okay,
there's more, but you can, yeah, there's more in there. If you want to follow that document outline around, you can kind of click around and see some stuff, but we got through a lot of stuff in an hour. So I'm pretty happy with the amount that we got through. So yeah, so thank you, everybody.
Wonderful. We'll see some of you in the next group. Otherwise, feel free to shoot any follow-up questions. We always say that there could be a follow-up workshop if you do this and you start applying it and you're like, hey, I have more questions. We're happy to make that happen too. See you all.
All right. Bye, everybody.